Well, it's Friday, February 13th, 2026. I'm Brittany Noble, and here's what's coming up on The Breakdown. Richmond Free Press, a black newspaper ran in a former Confederacy capital, is ending its operations after 34 years of publication. We'll tell you why they are shutting down. A black mother will remain in prison decades after the death of her newborn baby amid the fallout of Hurricane Katrina. Black Star Network correspondent Wesley Lowery is in North Carolina as the Love Forward Together March moves closer to Raleigh. He'll join us to talk about the progress and the significance of this non-violent protest. The Breakdown starts right now. Former CNN host, independent journalist Don Lemon is set to be arraigned on federal civil rights charges in a St. Paul, Minnesota court today. Lemon, Georgia Fort, Traherne Jean Cruz, Jamil Liddell Lundy, and Jerome D'Angelo and multiple others are accused of interrupting a Minnesota church service in protest, where an immigration and customs enforcement official is a pastor. It's unclear if Lemon plans to appear in court, but arraignments in federal court typically include the entering of pleas and scheduling of future proceedings. Lemon says he plans to plead not guilty. The Richmond Free Press, a black-owned weekly newspaper in Virginia, is ending its operations after 34 years. The newspaper has served the state's Confederate capital city for more than 3 decades. The publication is ending due to a lack in advertising revenue, which has made the paper unsustainable. The paper was founded by Raymond H. Boone Sr. and Jean Boone. It published its first edition on January 16, 1992. The Free Press continued to pursue its founding vision even after his death on June 3, 2014, and despite its closure, the newspaper has left a lasting impact on the Richmond Black area, contributing to justice and community engagement. Tiffany Woods, a black mother from New Orleans, remains behind bars nearly 2 decades after being convicted in the death of her newborn son. Woods was convicted of second-degree murder in 2008 after her premature baby Emmanuel died after she fed him cow's milk in the aftermath of Hurricane Katrina. According to the Marshall Project, Woods spoke to the parole board. She had run out of WIC vouchers and called the decision devastating.
I was depressed. I was lonely. My family wasn't around me. I didn't know if they was alive or not. I changed his formula to organic milk. And due to my choices, I thought I was making the right choice, but clearly I didn't.
2 parole board members voted for her early release, citing rehabilitation, but one member dissented, saying she could not overlook the child's condition at the time of death. A Philadelphia foster mother is facing murder charges after a toddler in her care drowned in a bathtub last year. The Philadelphia District Attorney has charged Alfonsia Watson with 3rd-degree murder and endangering the welfare of a child in the death of 20-month-old Hill, who drowned in April. According to court documents, Watson allegedly placed Hill, a 2-year-old and a 4-year-old, in a bathtub together, then went downstairs to retrieve food after hearing the microwave. During that time, Hill drowned. The lawsuit also claims the 4-year-old later told investigators that the 2-year-old intentionally held Hill under the water. Court records show Watson had 4 foster children, ages 4 and under, in the home, along with other relatives. Well, HGTV has canceled the show Rehab Addict after a video leaked of host Nicole Curtis using the N-word while filming an episode of the show. In an unaired clip, Curtis asked production to kill the footage. The video was posted on Thursday. Take a listen.
Oh, fart. What is the that I just said? Nick, you gotta, can you kill that?
Not only is this language like this hurtful, says the network, and disappointing to our viewers, partners, and employees, it does not align with the values of HGTV, and the show will no longer appear on the website. Also, a new law in Colorado, it's called HB 25-1149. It will require public schools to integrate Black history into their curriculum by the year 2028. The legislation creates a 17-member committee tasked with developing new academic standards that highlight Black contributions and experiences, not just slavery. Michael Atkins, the director of Black Student Success at Denver Public Schools, says Black history cannot be limited to February. He says the bill creates an opportunity to embrace the Black experience 365 days out of the year. Also, the University of Texas, Austin is restructuring its academic programs, and the move, well, it's causing concerns about the future of Black studies on campus. That's because UT Austin announced it will eliminate its African and African Diaspora Studies department as a standalone unit, folding it into a newly created department beginning this fall. Starting in September, the College of Liberal Arts plans to launch a Department of Social Studies and Cultural Analysis Studies, combining African and American Diaspora Studies with Mexican American and Latino Studies, Women and Gender Studies, and American Studies. Interim Dean David Sosa shared the decision with the department leaders Thursday, saying the curriculum and degree programs are now under review. Also, a new analysis from the Economic Policy Institute shows that Black women have been hit especially hard in the labor market. In 2025, Black women's unemployment rate, it dropped to 55.7%, while unemployment rose 5.8 to 6.7%. The report also found that Black women's labor force participation from 60.6 to 59.7%, suggesting that more Black women have left the workforce entirely. College-educated Black women saw some of the steepest losses, with employment dropping more than 3.5 percentage points, a shift that researchers say may be tied to the rollback of corporate DEI programs. All right, coming up on the breakdown, we will have live coverage of the Love Forward Together March, and continues, and the march gets closer to Raleigh. Black Star Network correspondent Wesley Lowery will have a live report for us coming up after the break. Stay with us.
With medicine and science under attack, I want to keep you and your family informed and healthy. I'm Dr. Ebony Hilton, and I knew at the age of 8 that I wanted to be a doctor. So I studied hard and became the first African-American female anesthesiologist hired at the Medical University of South Carolina since its opening in 1824. And I always say I was made into a doctor, but I was born to be a mom. And as a new mom, wife, sister, daughter, and friend, I understand how frightening a medical crisis can be. I care for individuals on some of the worst days of their lives, and it's my mission to provide you with a safe space to gain clarity on issues affecting your mind, body, and soul. I recognize that there are health disparities, particularly as it pertains to race, and I want to help bridge the gap between you and your healthcare providers. Join me every Thursday for Second Opinion on the Black Star Network, where each week I'll invite experts from various medical fields to share the latest health news. We'll discuss topics such as the vaccine debate, mental and sexual health, medical bias, infertility, menopause, andropause, nutrition, and aging. Together with my medical colleagues, we aim to provide you with a second opinion. Don't miss it, Thursdays only on the Black Star Network.
If in this country right now, you have people get up in the morning and the only thing they can think about is how many people they can hurt, and they got the power, that's the time for mourning.
For better or worse, what makes America special, it's that legal system that's supposed to protect minorities from the tyranny of the majority.
We are at a point of a moral emergency. We must raise a voice of outrage. We must raise a voice of compassion. And we must raise a voice of unity.
We are not in a crisis of party versus party. We are in a crisis of civilization, a human rights crisis, and a crisis of democracy itself. And guess what? You've been chosen to make sure that those that would destroy, those that would hate, don't have the final say, and they don't ultimately win.
I'm Risa Colbert, and you're watching the Black Star Network.
Well, we are in the third day of the Love Forward Together Moral March in North Carolina. Black Star Network correspondent Wesley Lowery is there with the marchers as they make their way closer to the city of Raleigh. Bishop William J. Barber II has worked with others to organize the movement as he calls for the nation to a moral and political awakening. Black Star Network's Wesley Lowery joins us right now.
Well, Brittany, all eyes have been on North Carolina. We've been down here for 3, coming on 4 days now, marching 50 miles from Wilson, making our way west. We've now made it into the city limits of the state capital of Raleigh, where we've got a few hundred people with repairs of the breach, led by Reverend Dr. William Barber, as well as other clergy members of other civil rights groups who have been making their way towards the state capitol. Now, again, why, for those who might be asking? Well, there's a few different reasons. The first, we know that early voting in the primary started yesterday here in North Carolina, and so there's a big push to make sure people are registered, people are showing up. North Carolina is a state where everyone who had been registered to vote, who had previously voted, had participated, where maybe some previous elections would have gone differently. But also, what we're seeing is a response, a movement in response to the behavior of the Trump administration, to efforts to redistrict during the off years, to efforts to deploy ICE agents to neighborhoods. And so we've seen people coming out, clergy members, people who are traveling from other states, who are coming here to begin mobilizing a movement, not just in resistance, but to try to lay out a vision for what's coming up next. And so we're at a break right now. We've been marching since this morning, and now we've made it to our first stop. Folks are loading up on the buses. We're about to drive for a few feet and head to the next stop. Then people are going to get out and they're going to start marching again. But what I'm going to do is I want to talk to one of the key organizers here. This is Dr. Reverend Hannah Broom. Thank you for taking a few minutes to talk with us. And can you explain to the viewers at home on Black Star Network, what are folks out here doing this week?
They are all marching for voting rights, for our immigrant communities, for public education, for healthcare, just on a bridge voter access. So we know that the HBCUs and North Carolina A&T polling station got shut down. And so that's why all of the people here are voting, are wanting to be in this march, are wanting to be a part of it. We had people come from California because the movement was that strong.
Now, about how many people have been coming out day after day?
A couple hundred, and we're getting bigger and bigger as we're going into Raleigh.
Now, what is the significance geographically of where we are and where we've been marching as we've gone from the east of the state now making our way into the middle of the state?
Congressional District 1 is what we actually marched through the first day completely. All of the small little towns that a lot of people overlooked. And so we walked through there to make sure they knew that their voices were going to be heard because they're trying to be wiped out with the gerrymander maps.
That's right. So Congressional District 1 is the district where Republicans in the state house at the behest of Donald Trump changed things around in the off years in order to delude in some ways the black vote and the progressive vote, the liberal vote in the district that's currently represented by Don Davis, member of the CBC. And that's an attempt by the Trump administration to hold on to power. Can you talk about the implications of what happens when governments try to take efforts to disenfranchise the least of these, black voters, brown voters, voters who need health care and social services, because this seems like a clear attempt at that?
You're silencing a whole voting block. You're actually telling people that their vote doesn't count. You're actually telling people now you're invisible. We'll count you as constituents, but yet we don't want to give you the right to vote. And so to move that concentrated power is not of moral rights. It's not about Republican or Democrat, it's not partisan, but it's really about what is right. And everybody should have a voice. Everybody should have a seat at the table. Everybody should have equal representation.
Now, can you talk to me a little bit about, as we've been with you guys since the first day? Some days have been a little warmer than others. It was real cold this morning. We've warmed up a little bit now, right? But what's been interesting has been watching some of the response and reaction. There have been times where we've walked past schools and so the children are waving. There are times where we've seen a fair number of business leaders and homeowners come out of their homes, wave, have some conversations. What has your impression of the response been? And what is the aim of something like a march, right? I think that sometimes in the social media age, as young people, we can be a little skeptical of, all right, y'all are just going to walk around for a few days. Talk to me a little bit about kind of the political theory and the community building that comes from bringing people together, having a physical show of force, and moving physically through communities, making your voice be heard.
letting them know that they're not forgotten. When we came through Sims, I think it was Sims, North Carolina, they said, I didn't know this would y'all actually cared about us. We came through Wendell and they was like, we didn't think anything like this would happen in Wendell, North Carolina. So they're letting us know that we should be doing this, that we should be getting these communities. We should be talking to them and letting them know, yes, this affects you and we're standing for you.
Now, I think so many people across the country right now are discouraged. They're angry. They're upset. Some of them are tired, right? Some of the people got all the demonstrating and marching and protesting they wanted to do out during the first Trump administration, right? What would you say to people across the country who feel that way, right? What is the example you all are trying to set here in North Carolina? The
fight is not over. Do not get weary. We got to continue to put in pressure. As Martin Luther King said, the arc of justice bends. The moral arc bends towards justice, but we need to help give a little pressure to that bending towards justice, and that's what we're doing. We're putting prophetic pressure into the streets so everybody knows that we are going to make sure we stand up for everybody's rights.
Now, this march started in Wilson, and it's made its way over the course of 3 days, about not all the way 50 miles yet, but you've been walking, I've been walking, and we made it close to the 50 miles so far, right? And tomorrow we're going to be at the State House. Can you tell people who are watching at home what's going to happen tomorrow? We'll be streaming it on Black Star Network, so y'all be watching with us as well, but give people a preview of what they're going to see tomorrow and what this all culminates in.
You're going to see impacted people who have been dealing with their cuts to Medicaid, how serious and severe it is towards them and their livelihood. You're going to hear impact stories from SNAP. You're going to hear impact stories from those whose voting rights have been infringed upon. You're going to hear all of those stories. So it's not just a budget item. It's not just a story. It's not just a headline, but it's actually a person attached to those decisions and those policies.
Absolutely. And those are the stories we care about at Black Star Network. Those are the stories that Brittany Noble at The Breakdown cares about a ton. And so we appreciate all our viewers for sticking with us. We're about to go get on some buses. We're going to drive a little bit, and we're about to get marching again. And so stick with us. We are live streaming at Black Star Network. We'll continue streaming the rest of today's march, and tune in tomorrow for some more interviews, for more conversations, and of course for the big rally at the State House. Reverend Barber just let us know there's going to be 7 key takeaways, a call to action, and the idea that this is not just an event for a few days, but this is going to be the kickoff of a movement that's going to stretch this entirety of this crucial midterm election year. So, as always, Wesley Lowery, the Black Star Network. Thanks for tuning in, and we're going to get marching again. Thank you, Brittany.
Thank you, Wesley. And the Black Star Network, again, will stream on Saturday. That march, it's time to love forward together and mass people's assembly. Well, coming up on The Breakdown, in case you missed it on Roland Martin Unfiltered, a Trump State Department nominee is now facing major backlash after senators confronted him over a history of racist, sexist, and reported anti-Semitic comments. Stay with us. You won't want to miss that. Plus, have you come across a news story that deserves our attention? We want to hear from you. Please submit your questions or your comments to us online, and we will make sure to read them and follow back up. We'll be right back. You're watching The Breakdown.
With medicine and science under attack, I want to keep you and your family informed and healthy. I'm Dr. Ebony Hilton, and I knew at the age of 8 that I wanted to be a doctor. So I studied hard and became the first African-American female anesthesiologist hired at the Medical University of South Carolina since its opening in 1824. And I always say I was made into a doctor, but I was born to be a mom. And as a new mom, wife, sister, daughter, and friend, I understand how frightening a medical crisis can be. I care for individuals on some of the worst days of their lives, and it's my mission to provide you with a safe space to gain clarity on issues affecting your mind, body, and soul. I recognize that there are health disparities, particularly as it pertains to race, and I want to help bridge the gap between you and your healthcare providers. Join me every Thursday for Second Opinion on the Black Star Network, where each week I'll invite experts from various medical fields to share the latest health news. We'll discuss topics such as the vaccine debate, mental and sexual health, medical bias, infertility, menopause, andropause, nutrition, and aging. Together with my medical colleagues, we aim to provide you with a second opinion. Don't miss it, Thursdays only on the Black Star Network.
Hey y'all. Welcome to The Other Side of Change, only on the Black Star Network and hosted by myself, Bria Baker, and my good sis, Jamira Burley. We are just two millennial women tackling everything at the intersection of politics, gender, and pop culture.
And we don't just settle for commentary. This is about solution-driven dialogue to get us to the world as it could be and not just as it is.
Watch us on the Black Star Network, so tune in to The Other Side of Change.
In our Black and Missing segment, family and friends are looking for Torrance Farrington. He was last seen in Miami, Florida on May 5th, 2007. He's 5'9", 175 pounds, medium complexion. He has short hair and hazel eyes. Farrington has an eagle tattoo on his arm and gold teeth. The circumstances surrounding his disappearance are unknown, but he was last seen wearing a white tank top and blue jeans and a gray jacket. If you know where he could be, please contact the Miami-Dade Police Department at 305-715-3300. Well, in case you missed it, last night on Roland Martin Unfiltered, Roland talked with a panel about President Donald Trump's nominee for Assistant Secretary of State for International Organizations, Jeremy Carl. Carl is unlikely to get the job after a bipartisan group of senators grilled him over his history of racist, sexist, and anti-Semitic comments and posts.
How many times have I told y'all Donald Trump welcomes white supremacists in his administration? Well, guess what? Jeremy Carl is a Trump nominee for Assistant Secretary of the State for International Organizations. The role involves managing relations with policies towards the United Nations and other agencies. And during his confirmation hearing, Senator Chris Murphy asked him some basic questions about his beliefs regarding the erasure of white culture.
Tell me how you define white identity and what you think is being erased about white identity.
Certain types of Anglo-derived culture that comes from our history.
Like what?
Let me think about this. Senator, I would say if you were to look at the book by one of your former Senate colleagues, Born Fighting, about the sort of Scotch-Irish military culture and certain, pride that went with that would be one example. Obviously, you could have sub-elements of that culture. You could have Italians, you could have Irish, and those are in many ways more.
But you're worried about white culture. You're not worried about, you're now retreating to ethnic identity. You don't speak about ethnic identity. You speak about white identity. So tell me the values that stitch together white identity and that make it different than black identity.
I would say that the white church is very different than the black church in terms of its tone and style on average. Foodways could often be different.
And those
music could be different.
And those are being erased.
Music could be different. Well, if you look at the Super Bowl halftime show, which was not in English this year.
So our ability to access white churches or white food or white music is being erased?
I am concerned with the majority common American culture that we had for some time that through particularly mass immigration, I think has become much more balkanized, and I think that weakens us. And again, I'm not running away from that comment. I'm not apologizing for it.
Well, I'm way over my time. I think you're struggling to answer this question, right? Because underlying your beliefs is a sentiment that white culture is just simply better.
Greg, what was that white boy talking about?
I love it. I love it, and I love him. I absolutely embrace them. I'll tell you why. Because that's the naked face that we all learned from kindergarten through now. That's American history. I know that people will push back against me, and I love and welcome and embrace them, and I want them to do that so that I can take them, every word of every sentence of every paragraph of every page of every book they've ever read in this funky settler crime country. All that white boy is doing is saying the quiet part out loud. So when you start talking about patriotism, you start talking about the American people, that's what white supremacists mean. Let me be very clear about this. This little nasty piece of work, and it's funny how they all look the same. You know, John Curtis, who looks like a man who would, you know, stumble into a truck stop at 2 o'clock in the morning for a bag of Funyuns and a warm soda, searching for his destiny and perhaps his desire in the middle of the night. They all look the same. John Curtis is a fellow of the Claremont Institution. Now, if y'all should look up the Claremont Institute, because at least 70 participants in the Claremont Institute's suite of fellowships are in the Trump administration. Here are some names of other Claremont fellows who are friends of this piece of work. Perhaps you've heard of Russell Vogt, even as we sit today and look at the evisceration of the Environmental Protection Agency, as you noted. James Braid, who is the White House legislative director, all this white nationalist stuff they're pushing through the legislature. Marco Rubio's advisor, Michael Needham, the deputy director of the Central Intelligence Agency. They're all Claremont fellows. These are religious zealots. He wasn't struggling, Senator. And by the way, Jeremy Call is the guy's name. Jeremy Call is who we're watching, as you say. John Curtis is a Utah senator who has already said he's coming out against it. He's coming out against the nomination. And guess what he's basing his no vote on? This Republican senator. He's saying because the guy has anti-Israel views. That's probably what's going to stop Jeremy Call, because the same racists that consider black people, mud people, and N-words and all that, they consider those who are Jewish not to be human as well. And this is where the stumbling block comes in. See, in Jeremy Carl's world, and you saw him name check Jim Webb, former Senator and Secretary of the Navy Jim Webb out of Virginia, for a book he wrote on the Scotch-Irish and their fighting tradition. It's the same philosophy that you saw in, I don't know, let's think of something, Mel Gibson, that racist, his movie, The Patriot, right? And then that's the one where Trump tried to give him his guns back. It's the same myth. The Irish, the Dutch, the Italians, the Germans, they all came together in a melting pot. And as Thurgood Marshall said, the Negro got through in that pot and not melted down. Why? Because they are white, because you are black. As James Baldwin said, their whiteness depends on the fact that they are not, thank heaven, you. That man's being honest, and I love him for it, because he gives you the litmus test. If you're with him, that means you're against us, and now we can fight. But all this pretense being dropped now, and I'm here for it. I'm here for it. Make a choice.
Well, what I find to be quite hilarious, Nola, is, oh yeah, I mean these are happening. You know, our white culture. I mean, there are the white churches. Their tone is different from the black churches. Then he brought up food. I'm like, boy, if you don't get your unseasoned chicken ass on.
Listen, I think Senator Murphy did a great job in breaking him down. Like, baby, what you talking about? What white food? You know, what white music are you talking about that black people came along and created? But, you know, I'm not going to get into that. My issue with all of this is, and, you know, I threaded on top of Senator Murphy's thread because I'm glad he called him a white nationalist, because that's absolutely what he is. And this administration is failing trying to market their white nationalism, right? So that's another part of it. And then I also think about, like, the Secretary of State, like Mark Rubio. What is going on? Like, the way you carry the water for white supremacy as the Secretary of State of the United States of America, that is so unbelievably sad. Because he had to okay this nomination. He had to okay for him to sit there and to even go through this process. So the fact that this brown man who clearly hates everything about who he is and his heritage, is literally carrying the water for white supremacy and wanting to adopt it and put it into our foreign policy and go out into the rest of the world and sell it. It's not going to work. It's falling apart. And I am actually having a good time watching this particular product that they're trying to sell fall flat on its face. But seriously, Mark Rubio, I don't know what is going on with you, but someone who cares a great deal about Department of State and the work that comes out of Department of State, this ain't it. And whatever you need to do, whoever you need to pray to, whatever come to Jesus moment you need, whatever identity moment you need, I hope you have it, because this is sad and this is pathetic and this is going to be your legacy.
Well, and bottom line is this here, Rubio wants to run in 2028, Reese, and it's like, okay, we'll be happy to bring up the white nationalists, white supremacists who you allowed to work underneath you. And listen, what Donald Trump has done, to Greg's point, hey, they don't need sheets, they don't need hoods. They like, no, we get to openly serve. He got people, Nazi-loving folk who are in the administration. So they got no problem embracing racists. But then it's like, but don't you dare call him a one. Well, he walked like one, talked like one. I think he is one.
Well, first of all, let me say, fuck Marco Rubio. You will never be president, bitch. That's number one. And then number two, your white culture is not getting erased. We're not fucking interested. That's what's happening. We're not interested. If we were interested, then that dingy, dirty, dusty, mangy-haired ass Kid Rock halftime show that was on YouTube barely would have got 130-something million views like Kid Rock got. It's enough for y'all if people was really interested to run those numbers up. But we're not fucking interested. And we don't exalt you because ain't nobody coming to see you, Opie. Look at you. Ugh. Yuck. Yuck. More accurately, y'all just mad that we are not interested. And I actually very much celebrate y'all having y'all own shit because we don't need y'all fucking up the boots on the ground, the flex, and the Tamia line dance. I'm very, very, very much happy that we do have our own shit. That ain't the white shit. So if y'all white shit was more popping, then it will be something that everybody's interested. But in the meantime, in between time, we're gonna be over here minding our business, and you stay your motherfucking ass over there.
Be sure to tune in tonight to Roland Martin Unfiltered at 6:00 p.m. Eastern. I am taking over for Roland tonight as host. Well, coming up on the breakdown, it's not just spoken word, it's not just poetry, it's power. Baltimore's own Black Chakra joins us to talk about artistry, activism, and why Black voices on the mic still matter. And if you love what we do here at the Black Star Network, please support us. Your support is absolutely critical to what we do. You can support us via Cash App using the Stripe code. We'll put that there in the bottom left-hand corner. You can also help us with credit cards. Use the same thing. PayPal's R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo's RM Unfiltered. Zelle at RolandSMartin.com. Rolling at RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. If you're old school, you can send checks and money orders payable to Roland Martin Unfiltered, P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. Our goal is to raise $1 million by December 31st, and we certainly appreciate your support. Stay with us. You're watching The Breakdown on the Black Star Network.
Hey y'all, welcome to The Other Side of Change, only on the Black Star Network and hosted by myself, Rhea Baker, and my good sis, Jamira Burley. We are just two millennial women tackling everything at the intersection of politics, gender, and pop culture.
And we don't just settle for commentary. This is about solution-driven dialogue to get us to the world as it could be and not just as it is.
Watch us on the Black Star Network, so tune in to The Other Side of Change.
Violent white supremacy is, quote, the most persistent and lethal threat in the homeland.
The greatest terrorist threat is the homeland. is the homegrown violence stream, including hate crime committed on behalf of some kind of white supremacist ideology.
They are coming after everything in Black America. MAGA and Donald Trump are specifically targeting Black America. They are going after the money. Attack Black Lives Matter. Attack critical race theory. Attack woke, DEI. MAGA wants to defund Black America. This is a perfect example of their desire to completely degrade and de-emphasize Black people.
Hi, I'm Swing Cash, Basketball Hall of Famer, and you're watching Black Star Network.
Hey, sorry, I was running a little late. Hey, sorry, I was running a little late. It's my day to get the kids. I'm here for pickup. Yeah. Emmett. Yeah, that's his name. I don't know what you're talking about. My son doesn't whistle at people. Are you sure she's not lying? Where's Emmett? Oh my God. Okay, his brother's not gonna understand. His family's not gonna understand. Give me his brother. Somebody gotta tell Trayvon. Where's Trayvon? Yes, he has a hoodie. It's cold. Where's Trayvon? What? He mistook his can of Arizona for a gun? Where's my son? Who did it? Show me the cop. Show me the cop. He was a regular person. Some man stalked and killed my boy. I don't know what I'm going to tell their mothers. I don't know what I'm going to tell their mothers. Give me their little brother. They got a little brother here. Please, just give me Tamir. Just give me Tamir. I want to hold my baby. Please, just give me Tamir. Yes! The one who plays in the park. Give me Tamir! They were babies. They were babies! You see them as thugs, but they were babies! Give me my son! America! Why do I leave my children with you, but I never get them back? Give me my son! Give me...
Well, that is Jacob Mayberry. He is known across the spoken word world as Black Chakra, a Baltimore-based poet, MC, and whose voice has become a force in modern Black expression. He's a National Poetry Slam champion, a 2018 Texas Grand Slam champion, and a respected mentor with Drew Barrymore. Baltimore helping shape the next generation of poets and truth tellers. Many call him Baltimore's sovereign poet authority, not just because of his skill, but because of his ability to turn pain, pride, politics, and purpose into poetry that hits like a sermon and lands like a protest. I want to introduce you to Black Chakra. Jacob Mayberry, thank you for joining us today on The Breakdown.
Thank you for having me. I'm honored to be here.
We are honored to have you here with us. Tell us about the poem that we just played and what got you to the point where you wrote it and performed it.
I like to study different oratory art forms, such as spoken word, hip hop, singing, and comedy is one of them. I came across knowledge of a stand-up set by Richard Pryor where he told no jokes. He came on as God and he said he was there to pick up Jesus. And then once he realized what the people did to Jesus, he then wanted to speak to Martin. So for me, I saw a spoken word concept in that. But instead of speaking on a more worldly issue, I wanted to talk about the plight of African Americans, specifically if I could bring attention to how we consistently have to bury our young. So that's the way I took that concept, and I wanted to make it something more powerful and more personable to us today.
And tell us what kind of responsibility do you feel that you have when you hold onto the mic?
Currently, in this world, in this country, we are seeing a transition of things that were set standard years ago. Different regimes, different politics have come in, and there's an erasure of Black history. There is erasure of Black truth. So I think it is the responsibility of the modern Black poet to speak on the important issues. If we forget, then no one remembers. Our jobs as artivists is to always put the truth in people's faces, no matter how uncomfortable. So for me, it's a giant responsibility, but I'm proud to have that responsibility, and it's a beautiful thing to do. It's a beautiful thing to remind my people about our struggles and try to bring us uplifting messages while also never letting us forget the horrors as I think they would like us to in this country.
Do you think that poetry allows Black people to say things that mainstream media refuses to carry?
Absolutely. Same thing with comedians. If you look at people such as Dick Gregory, Richard Pryor, there's a lot of times when we put it in music or comedy, somehow it's not as in their face as someone like Malcolm X was. Even though we're saying the same things that Malcolm X was saying, we just rhyme it, and it speaks to us in a code. Black people, as a people, we have always spoken different codes. The invention of the martial art form capoeira was a fight style that was hidden in dance so that they could fool their slavers. So when it was time to rebel, they just thought they were dancing. And I see that in the language we use, in modern Black diction, how we speak certain ways, and often it gets co-opted or adopted by other races and other cultures and stuff like that, because they see how powerful our coded language is, and poetry is the coded language I use to speak to us, and it works. It hits the soul differently, I think.
Your work often carries deep emotion, grief, joy, rage, healing. Tell us where you pull all of that from.
A deep understanding of history, a deep understanding of modern society, and a need to not be forgotten. My heroes, the Gil Scott-Herons, the Amiri Barakas, Langston Hughes, James Baldwin, these amazing writers took it upon themselves to say the thing that always didn't please people. The last poets, they said the messages that would scare certain people or scare certain regimes. And for me, it does a disservice to them if I am continuing their tradition and their art form, but I do this in a petrified manner. So for me, particularly, I think that the responsibility we have to do this is where that come from. I don't understand how I could be a poet in modern society and not talk about these things. I don't have the privilege of privilege. You know, I would love to write about flowers, but there are so many of my friends under them. I have to write about that first. I would love to write about trees, but I know the history of trees. I know that my ancestors have hung from them. So to ignore these things as an African-American writer, to me, it just feels like betrayal.
Talk about that a little bit more. I mean, in a time when books are banned, history is being erased, and Black voices are being attacked, do you feel like poetry is becoming more important than ever?
Art in general is always a necessity. Poetry is what happens when change becomes impatient. And I say that to say the voiceless often have nowhere to go, so they go to poetry. When we're in our worst feelings ever, we turn to song, we turn to melodic poetry. When we want to express something to someone, we write love letters, which are just love, we're just letters wearing poetry's outfits. You know what I'm saying? Like, we as a people, as a human race, always turn to poetry to help us. Poetry is in everything. So because of that, it does the heavy lifting oftentimes to liberate, right? Bobby Seale, Huey P. Newton, when they were first arrested before they formed the Black Panther Party, they were in a restaurant performing a poem by a writer named Marvin X. And that's what they were quoting when they were first arrested. And when they were arrested, that's when they formed the Black Panther Party. I note that specifically to say poetry is behind every movement. We are behind every movement. Every time I hear a march or I see a march and I hear "We Gonna Be All Right" in the background, I know that poetry is still pushing the movements. So yeah, absolutely. That's the job of the art form. That's the job of art, to move us as a people.
Let me ask you this. What do you think America is afraid of when it comes to Black storytelling?
Well, this interesting thing happens when we tell our stories. Their children listen.
Ooh,
and they've always been terrified of that. Even if you go back to the 80s, when they were so afraid when hip hop was getting into the ears of people, right? You go all the way back to Elvis, who is white, but because his sound was Black and his movements were Black, there were white politicians and conservatives who are afraid of Elvis being seen by his daughters because they see it's a slippery slope. If they're enjoying this on a white person, soon they'll enjoy it on melanin. Our stories are powerful. We pull people in. There's a reason why hip hop is the largest genre of music on earth for so long. It's because our stories have that power and ability, and they're afraid of that. They're afraid of Tommy and Timmy and Ted and Chaz listening to what we have to say, adopting it and adapting to it, understanding that there's a plight that we come from. Because once you see our plight, you can't ignore it. And that's what they've been trying to do in this nation, consistently ignore the plight of a people when they don't have one, right? The other thing is they try to keep us ignorant. Like, no, in your art, you don't express that. Express this. There's a reason why all these record labels are pushing certain messages and pushing certain music, because it's like, that is what we want your children to intake. And if my children have to intake anything, it's going to be your ignorance, not your power, not your empowerment. So I think this nation has always been afraid of Black history because Black history is world history. Black history supersedes them. Black history circumvolves their history. So because of that, learning more about us is frightening, because the more you learn about us, the more powerful we become.
Jacob Mayberry, I'm so grateful that you joined us today on The Breakdown. Tell our viewers how they can stay connected with you.
You can follow me everywhere but home. I am Black, BLACK, Chakra, CHAKRA 88 on Instagram and TikTok. I am currently ranked #1 slam poet in the US, which means I'll be representing us in the World Poetry Slam. So I have my GoFundMe up for that soon, because I'll have to go to Africa, and make no mistake, I'm representing us, that part of America.
Wonderful. Jacob Mayberry, known as Black Chakra, thank you for joining us on The Breakdown. Thank you for using your gift to tell the truth.
Thank you.
All right, coming up after the break in our For the Culture segment, we're talking about one of the most talked about and most challenged books in America, All Boys Aren't Blue, by author and journalist George M. Johnson. He explores Black identity, boyhood, what it means to grow up Black and queer in this country. George Johnson is next. Stay with us. You will not want to miss his interview. Plus,
With medicine and science under attack, I want to keep you and your family informed and healthy. I'm Dr. Ebony Hilton, and I knew at the age of 8 that I wanted to be a doctor. So I studied hard and became the first African-American female anesthesiologist hired at the Medical University of South Carolina since its opening in 1824. And I always say I was made into a doctor, but I was born to be a mom. And as a new mom, wife, sister, daughter, and friend, I understand how frightening a medical crisis can be. I care for individuals on some of the worst days of their lives, and it's my mission to provide you with a safe space to gain clarity on issues affecting your mind, body, and soul. I recognize that there are health disparities, particularly as it pertains to race, and I want to help bridge the gap between you and your healthcare providers. Join me every Thursday for Second Opinion on the Black Star Network, where each week I'll invite experts from various medical fields to share the latest health news. We'll discuss topics such as the vaccine debate, mental and sexual health, medical bias, infertility, menopause, andropause, nutrition, and aging. Together with my medical colleagues, we aim to provide you with a second opinion. Don't miss it, Thursdays only on the Black Star Network.
If in this country right now, you have people get up in the morning and the only thing they can think about is how many people they can hurt, and they got the power, that's the time for mourning.
For better or worse, what makes America special, it's that legal system that's supposed to protect minorities from the tyranny of the majority.
We are at a point of a moral emergency. We must raise a voice of outrage. We must raise a voice of compassion. And we must raise a voice of unity.
We are not in a crisis of party versus party. We are in a crisis of civilization, a human rights crisis, and a crisis of democracy itself. And guess what? You've been chosen to make sure that those that would destroy, those that would hate, don't have the final say, and they don't ultimately win.
I'm Risa Colbert, and you're watching the Black Star Network.
Well, it's a book that sparked national conversation, controversy, and community reflection. All Boys Aren't Blue is the best-selling memoir manifesto by award-winning journalist and author George M. Johnson. The book explores what it means to grow up Black and queer in America, navigating family, masculinity, identity, love, trauma, and survival. But it's also become one of the most frequently challenged and banned books in the country, targeted by conservative lawmakers and school boards who say it shouldn't be available to young readers. And stories like George Johnson's reminds us that Blackness is not just one-dimensional, and neither is boyhood. Joining me now is author and journalist George M. Johnson. Thanks for being with us here on The Breakdown.
Thank you for having me this morning.
Absolutely. So, George, break it down. Tell me what got you to the place where you decided to begin writing books.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting. My whole life was like, I was doing finance. Like most of my education was in finance and human resources. And I did a career change all the way back in like 2015, where I went into grassroots work, more activism, and HIV work. And I was realizing as I was doing HIV work, there weren't a lot of stories out there from the Black perspective of what the HIV epidemic looked like. And so I started, writing, and then that's how I got into journalism. And then as I was writing about, the Black queer experience as a journalist, there were some tragic deaths that had happened to some Black teens, where one of the things that were stated was that the mother, she stated that the father killed her son because he said that he would rather have a dead son than a gay son. Mm-hmm. And it was a story I had wrote about like 4 times. And that's when I knew it wasn't enough. And I was like, what if I could use my own story, use my family as like the model of what it looks like when you may not have all the answers when you're raising a queer child, but if you start from a place of love, this child can be successful in the world. And so that's really what birthed All Boys Aren't Blue. And I guess in essence has birthed me writing several other books since then, and continuing to do that work as I was watching how many lives it changed.
That first book, All Boys Aren't Blue, became one of the most talked about books in the country and also one of the most challenged. Did you ever expect that it would spark that level of international attention?
Okay, short answer, no. I knew it was going to get banned. Like even when I first started writing it and we first started having meetings, I was like, I have a feeling it's going to get challenged in a few places, only because at that time, the 1619 Project was starting to get challenged some. But also there were 2 young adult books, The Hate You Give and Dear Martin, that were getting challenged in a weird way. And I kind of was just reading the tea leaves and I was like, something is happening that we got to make sure we pay attention to. And so when my book came out, though, it was the pandemic. So you didn't have a lot of all the kids were at home. And so I don't think parents, like those conservative parents, actually were keeping up with the readings that the teens were doing. And so once kids started going back to school about 18 months later, that's when this huge wave of like banning started to happen. I think once they really, realized what the school's reading lists were. But I always knew, anytime you're telling a story that is very truthful, because my story is a truth. When these people can't go, that would be sad if that happened to somebody, and they have to read a book where it's like they have to look in the mirror and look at the horrors that they may have caused on another person. It's easier for them to eradicate the text than to actually have to look at themselves in the mirror.
So you did not stop. You continued writing beyond All Boys Aren't Blue, including We Are Not Broken. What did that book allow you to say or explore that you hadn't fully expressed before?
We Are Not Broken allowed me to explore grief in a way that I think many of us struggle with. I think like your last guest talked about, like there's a collective grief that happens a lot of times in Black communities, and we're not given the space and the time to actually process it. Anytime we even look at, when he brought up the Tamir Rices, the Trayvon Martins, we all had to go to work the next day. Like we all, like those things, they were bothering us to our core, like where, we felt we had lost children and we all still had to go to work the next day. And so We're Not Broken was my chance to work through all the things I was grieving. My grandmother was the catalyst for it. I literally wrote the proposal the day before she passed. Wow. Because I knew I just wanted to enshrine her in a way. I always think about how we take quotes from, Toni Morrison or James Baldwin, but we sometimes can easily overlook the quotes that the people who are right there next to us are giving us to live by as well. And so for me, that was putting her back into the world, because I believe it was Toni Morrison who said, as long as, like, if it's in a book, like, people never die as long as their story is told. And so, like, she'll never die because her story is always going to be out there.
I love the relationship that you have with your grandmother, and I love the way that you have been able to honor her. One of your other books, Flamboyance, The Queer Harlem Renaissance, I Wish I'd Known, highlights queer Black history that's often erased. Why was that important for you to share those stories right now?
as All Boys Aren't Blue was growing and I was, traveling and like meeting people and watching how many lives were being changed and seeing all the messages, I was realizing that a lot of the messages, especially from teens, were saying that I was their hero. And it made me sit back to be like, well, who were my heroes? And as an adult, I can say who my heroes are. But I was like, as a teen, I didn't have heroes that looked like me. I didn't know about, the queerness that existed before me because we weren't getting taught that in schools. And so I was like, this is now like my job now is to restore that so that people, one, know that they have history and legacy and that they've been here before so that we're not some anomaly in the system. But two, I think everybody deserves the right to have their own heroes. And I always say, like, even when we talk about, Malcolm X and Martin Luther King, there's one more M that was also fighting for civil rights, and that was Marsha P. Johnson, right? And like, there's a reason that people get left out of the conversation. And so part of what I've had to learn is that my work is to put people back into the conversation or to even start a conversation that wasn't happening. And I think that was my goal with Flamboyance, especially even when you look at Zora Neale Hurston, right? Like, she had a whole career and then passes away. And if it wasn't for Alice Walker writing an article about her we wouldn't have Their Eyes Are Watching God as a movie with Halle Berry, and we wouldn't have all of these things. So sometimes it just takes one of us to restore them, to take back the power that was taken away from them.
And tell us about your latest work, George.
Yeah, so this was my first fiction work with Leah Johnson. It's called There's Always Next Year. It's simple. It's a Black queer romantic comedy that takes place all on New Year's Day. I believe in, I write a lot of my books can have like very heavy topics. And so I also believe that we all deserve a form of escapism. We all deserve books that give us hope, books that make us laugh, books that may, you get to the end of the book and you're just happy. You didn't have to learn some huge lesson, and it wasn't about, like some of the heavier topics that I write about. But I just felt I wanted to start putting into the world, just a different version of what I write about. And so, like I said, my first foray into fiction. And so I'm excited to continue to build in the fiction space as well as the nonfiction space. But yeah, there's always next year. And I think that's the biggest thing, right? Like, even if everything goes wrong in a day, there's always tomorrow. Even if everything goes wrong in your week, there's always next week. Even if you had a bad 2025, well, there's always next year. So, hoping that people read it and it pushes them to a prosperous 2026.
You're teaching us and you're lifting our spirits too. George M. Johnson, thank you so much for joining us on The Breakdown. If you have not read his books, you definitely want to check it out. His website, IamGMJohnson.com. Did I get that right, George?
Yes, and that's my socials are all I Am GM Johnson as well.
All right. George Johnson, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And I want to thank everybody at home for watching The Breakdown today. We will have much more next week, Monday through Friday at noon Eastern here on